Like I know there's a lot of up and coming musicians and that actually even at a young age they want to be session musicians, right? I never did. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be in Genesis.
I am joined on the UK Drum Show official podcast by Steve Barney. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Steve, you are no stranger to the drumming community. You have played with Jeff Beck, you have played with The Wanted, the Sugababes, you've played with Anastasia, you've played with Annie Lennox. The list goes on and on and on. But one thing we were just talking about is that you have never done a drum show. This is your first one. You are losing your drum show virginity with us at the ACC Liverpool in October in Mike Dolbear's masterclass room. So, firstly, having been such a successful drummer, played stadiums all around the world, why have you always shied away from drum shows or exhibitions until now?
Well, thanks for the intro, and it's really great to meet you, Ollie.
You too.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because on the one hand, I've been fortunately busy with a lot of these different tours and artists that you've mentioned, and it's never sort of coincided with the right time to do it. And also, I think that maybe there's a part of me that kind of, maybe wrongly kind of thought that these kind of events are a bit of a spectator sport of drumming and I always thought, well, I'm just kind of a drummer that likes to play with other musicians and support artists. And to be honest with you, mate, like the thought of being in a room full of drummers kind of scared the life out of me for the longest time, and it probably still does in the back of my mind. But Mike Dolbear was persistent. He's been a friend for many years. I'm a fan of the UK Drum Show, and do you know what? I thought maybe I should do it because I thought maybe one day they won't ask me. So I thought I should say yes. And I looked at the diary and on the date that Mike offered, and I thought, man, I'm going to do it. So I'm doing it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Going to be amazing to have you there. The great thing about the UK drum show, as I know that you know, is that it isn't just the auditorium. You've got lots of other rooms happening, which is obviously where you're going to be based in Mike Dolbear's room, which is, I think there's like a 400-500 capacity seat in that part. But from all the little rooms dotted around, there's kind of small, little intimate masterclasses ranging from between 10 and 50 people. Then much bigger rooms like what you're playing, and then obviously the auditorium as well. So it's an amazing event with lots of different drummers. Um, but you mentioned possibly about shying away. Was nerves involved in that at all? I know you kind of briefly mentioned that it being a spectator
Absolutely.
sport.
You kidding me? You're a
Well,
drummer, and you're a great drummer, I know. And listen, some drummers can't wait to like get up and kind of blow, and do their thing. And there's really a time and a place for every type of drummer. And well, I think what Mike kind of, to be honest, and be really, really kind of sort of like transparent with everyone, is that I always thought that no, like really, I'm not like the drum solo guy necessarily, and I was associated with drum shows with just going absolutely ballistic on your kit and throwing everything at you. So much so that when I was a kid and I saw some drummers do that I would leave being blown away by them, but feeling that I was kind of like what I was doing was sort of not valid. But what Mike kindly reminded me is that, mate, you played for all these artists. You played, lots of different great songs, supporting songs with the artists that I played with, and I think that there's a lot more people that are interested in being solid and what it takes to play for an artist, because there's a time and a place for all types of drumming, which, as you said, the UK Drum Show definitely offers all of those
Mhm.
types of choices. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just thought it was important that that I said yes, and I come down and and I play some songs, play along to some songs, have some conversation with Mike, and hope that one or two people might be inspired by my journey of being a drummer, and where I got to in these latter snow white bearded days.
Well, look, you've played with some huge names, massive venues, iconic venues all around the world. Was there ever a point, or was ever, I suppose, a point within your career, or perhaps a telephone call from an artist in particular, where you've thought, "Oh wow, this is getting quite serious now. Like drums is actually my life now."
Yeah, I mean, just rewinding slightly. Well, rewinding 31 years, is when I moved to Liverpool from my hometown of Norwich to kind of take a leap of faith, so to speak. And it's the irony of like where the UK Drum Show is in Liverpool, which is my home and where I live. So, yeah, I guess like the leap of faith was made sort of 31 years ago to kind of give drumming a go full time, so to speak. Unfortunately, here we are, kind of all these years later. But as far as like a phone call where I thought, hang on a minute, this is getting serious, I guess there's been fortunately a couple, but without a shadow of a doubt, after the band that I was initially in Liverpool disbanded, or rather imploded, I kind of got into, I wanted to get involved in freelancing session work, and I played for a pop girl group from Liverpool called Atomic Kitten that some people may or may not remember, but they had this big song called Whole Again, and it was my first kind of dipping my toe into the freelance world, and I really enjoyed it, and it showed me a different discipline from the rock band, which is pretty robust, that I'd been in before.
Yes.
But yeah, after the band broke up and I was playing for the Kittens, this producer friend of mine, Andy Wright, called me. And I guess that was the call you're talking about. He was like, hey, Steve, I know you phoned me, I don't know, 6 months ago saying you were looking for freelance work, and I've got this project coming up. And I was like, oh, great, Andy, thanks for calling me. And I presumed initially he was calling me for a new artist that he was producing, because he works with a lot of up-and-coming artists or, classic artists. And he says, you remember I did Jeff Beck's last record? I said, oh, yeah, man, that was amazing. I love that. He says, well, I'm doing a new record with him, and I really think you'd be great for it. And I was like, wow. And clearly I said yes, but I initially was a little bit thinking, man, because as you know, all of us drummers know, there's been so many great name drummers associated with Jeff over the years.
Oh, yes.
Some of our favorites, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, have you called the right Steve? And but Jeff,
funny if they said, oh, sorry.
Yeah, actually, no, completely the wrong Steve. But how are you? But how are you anyway, Steve? Keep in touch. No, so fortunately for me, he said, listen, I know what you did with your band, Bullyrag, and the kind of record we're making, or Jeff wants to make, from a rhythm section point of view, is more of a Prodigy-esque, Chemical Brothers kind of heavy beats, with kind of Jeff being, bless him, Jeff, the great Jeff Beck over the top. And that was the kind of a thing. And so, I went down to London and I played on this album in 2003 by Jeff, which was just an amazing thing to have been able to. I was just glad to meet the guy, let alone play with him.
So cool. That's something that you and I have in common is you played for an album with Jeff. I just jammed with him for 5 minutes at his house, but you had the better deal. I've got to ask, like you say, you moved from Alan Partridge territory, Norwich, into Liverpool, which is the Beatles territory. You have played with Atomic Kitten and the Sugababes, but you've also played with Jeff Beck. You're clearly somebody who geographically, musically, is very versatile. Has that always been who you are as a person, as a musician, as a human?
I think, going back, I used to always associate session musicians or freelance with people that could read drum music or could read music, wear a bow tie, and there's nothing wrong with a bow tie. But I just used to think it was quite a formal job. And as I said, I'd never, I know there's a lot of up-and-coming musicians and that actually, even at a young age, they want to be session musicians, right? I never did. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be in Genesis. You know what I mean? That was my kind of start on in life, looking at that and thinking, man, if I could find the right band. But so in answer to your question, I guess I'd like to think, it's hard to speak about yourself, but as it's an interview, there's no one else there to answer for me. So I guess I've always tried to be, I'd like to think I'm quite a personable person, and I think I'm good at reading the room in different scenarios. And those gigs that you mentioned, the Sugababes or the Wanted and Jeff Beck, they are quite different, you know what I mean? And Jeff Beck was definitely a stretch for me musically. But I was really proud of, because I ended up doing some shows with him. I wasn't just an album. I fortunately did 3 nights at the Royal Festival Hall with him.
Wow.
Which was, which was an amazing thing. So I guess, so I guess I'm sort of, geographically, musically, socially, try to just read the room, read the musicians that I'm on stage with. and clearly I must have something in my sort of petrol tank, you know what I mean? But also I think I've been really fortunate to respond to people that I've shared the stage with or people that I've shared a studio with. And it really fuels you, as you know, Ollie, when you play with other musicians and great singers, that you can't help but that kind of feed the way that you respond to it. But you do have to have something in your stick bag, I guess, you
Yes,
know.
yes, absolutely. And with regards to your stick bag, what are you going to be bringing to the UK drum show that perhaps might be different to what other drummers are bringing? Is there any sort of, would you be making it interactive, for example? Would you be like a Q&A session, or would you be a drum solo or playing along to tracks that you've played on, sharing stories, giving advice? What do you think the Steve Barney set is going to be about?
Have you got you've just read my script for exactly what I'm going to do, all of that.
Really?
As you know, it's going to start with me taking my inhaler,
You're
having a
right,
breath,
okay.
asking everyone to face the other way, and then I'm going to
Right.
play for 40 minutes. No. Um, I definitely don't intend to do a drum solo, but I really do intend to play along to some songs that I've been either a part of or of artists that I've played with live, because clearly I want to represent myself and what I've done within my career. So that's definitely the intention to do that. I do think me and Mike are talking about doing like a Q&A thing within it, because I think it would
Amazing.
be nice to give some feedback and hopefully some pointers or some inspiration to people
Yeah, for sure.
about my personal journey. But as we know, everyone's journey is different. But yeah, as I said, if I can sort of inspire some people to kind of, by my journey and taking a leap of faith in doing what I've done and do, then it'll be a job well done. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I will be nervous, but I'm looking forward to it.
What's one thing on your kit that you just like can't go without? And I don't mean, for example, sticks, kick pedal, snare drum. I mean, do you have anything that might be, I don't know, I suppose totemistic to your setup that you think, I've always had this 8-inch splash, or I just can't not have it. Just
Mm.
something strange, something a bit random.
I don't know if I've got anything random, but I was looking over the years of like setups and tours that I've done. My kit setup hasn't really changed that much, so I
Thin
guess
up.
I'm a creature of habit, or I don't really change up what I've got. Funny enough, you mentioned a splash. I think I've got is it an 11-inch Zildjian Oriental trash splash, which I've used
Nice.
for quite a while. That's not necessarily like a good luck charm, but as you've mentioned, that I always tend to have that as part of the setup. But I don't really have anything special, man. I just kind of, have a few jokes in my back pocket to help me with the time. And
Yeah.
no, but no, I don't really have anything special, mate. Just just fortunate to have my drums and my cymbals
Your
and
stories.
some songs and my stories. Yeah, yeah.
Do you I mean, obviously you strike me as somebody who has a lot of energy, somebody who has worked very hard to get where they are today, and is very well respected within the drumming community. That being said, do you think there is a reason as to why so many of us drummers are natural extroverts, considered the party of the band? And when there are events like the UK Drum Show or Europe Drum Show, why two complete strangers can meet on a Saturday morning at the UK Drum Show, for example, and they leave on the Sunday night as absolute best friends? What do you think it is about being a drummer that just makes us so welcoming to other drummers?
I think we're like in a band and in a musical setup. Clearly, everyone's role is dead important, but drummers is definitely like the foundation and the solidity and the concrete of the whole thing and the feel good factor. And us drummers, we kind of have a fortunate position, the best seat in the house, maybe, on our drum stools at the back of the stage, looking at all the musicians and singers that we might be sharing the stage with. We have a really lucky view of that. And I think clearly it's our job to pull things together and make things feel a certain way and feel good, And I think that that overspills into just socially and being in the room. And I do think we're maybe, I mean, clearly drums are quite a volume-wise pretty extrovert instrument, so no one could ignore us because of the
Yes.
attention it draws immediately, whether it be your neighbour or someone knocking at the window to tell you to shut it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly why that is. But you're absolutely right. There is a genuine common bond with between us drummers, and do you know what I mean? And which is I look up to nearly every almost every drummer I've ever seen and heard. In one way or another, we're always inspired by someone and their story and how they play, and everyone approaches things slightly different. Which is I think as the older I've got, it's a beautiful thing to recognise and to
Yeah.
celebrate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I asked Thomas Lang that very question a couple of weeks ago, because obviously he's opening the entire event, and
Yeah,
he sort of said something that I hadn't really considered before, but also intertwining with what you just said as well. He said drumming is so primal; it just brings us right back to our roots. And I thought, in addition with what you've said and the view of it being primal, I think, yeah, I don't know. I've said this in so many episodes of this, but you don't see many other musicians that play other instruments willing to share their notes with the person sitting next to them. But for a drummer, it's like, did you see what they did? Did you see what she did?
yeah.
Everyone's so willing to share and to celebrate each other's success, which obviously I'm biased, but I feel like you don't get that with other instruments.
I don't know if you do. I think you might be onto something there. I mean, definitely echoing what Thomas said to you the other week, that in the primal sense of things, that music just as an overall thing, music is, let's face it, that's what we want to play is music. It's not just drums. I've been fortunate, like a lot of us have, to be, I've been fortunate that I was on the other side of the world in Japan playing with a Japanese artist, singing Japanese words and lyrics that I don't understand. But yet I feel 100% connected to his
Yeah,
Japanese audience. I've been in Italy with an Italian artist, playing with an Italian lady singing that. And it's always, music is the great communicator. You know what I mean? It's the
yeah.
great feel good factor that brings us together. So Thomas is right. That is a real primal thing.
Mhm.
And you're absolutely right. Yeah, us drummers are good for each other, I think.
We are, and especially after the UK drum show, when everyone piles back to the pub, it's always good fun. Um, what do you think is going to be, Steve, next for you? Because you've toured the world, you've played these iconic stadiums, you've played with Annie Lennox and Will Young, The Wanted, Sugababes, Jeff Beck, Anastasia. There are so many artists that you've played with. Where does it go for you next? What are you working on at the moment that you're really excited about, or are you taking a moment to just take a breath and find something else that's up your street?
Well, I was very fortunate to do a tour a couple of months ago with a French project called Era, which I first toured with in 2019, and that was a really interesting and different type of tour for me. It's not like a rock opera, but it's got a lot of elements of like rock and trip hop and kind of choir and Gregorian chant. It's quite an interesting show, and
Wow.
and I did that in 2019, and then we did it again, as I said, a couple of months ago in France, and that was a great success. That was
Wow.
arenas, and obviously people in the UK may not have heard of it, but it's something that was associated with a quite a cult French film, and the music
Wow.
from Era was actually used in that. So, in answer to your
Amazing.
question, I really enjoyed that tour, and we're just about to work on a brand new Era album this summer. So, I'm really excited to be involved in that, which I've played on a couple of their songs before, but to get in the studio and do that is going to be good. And beyond that, like a kind of like a lot of us, I might have done all those things that you say, but it's a hunter gatherer world that we're in, and
Yes.
and gigs don't grow on trees. You know what I mean? I've checked. There's no gigs on my trees outside, and I'll be honest. Like from the minute I started doing this, I never know what's next, and that can be kind of challenging at
Yeah.
times for all of us. But somehow you have to keep the kind of the fuel of the belief going, and hopefully someone remembers Steve Barney and they'll give me a call.
That's incredible, man, and congratulations with all your success. We can't wait to see you at the UK Drum Show in Mike Dolbear's masterclass room. I believe you're playing Sunday the 19th, so that's going to be absolutely incredible to see you, to hear your stories, hear your drumming, and hear you connect with lots of other musicians that would love to see their career progress in the way that yours has. My final question is, you're not going to get the opportunity to speak individually with everybody that's going to be watching you. So, on behalf of all of the aspiring drummers of any age, any ability, what's your one piece of advice for a drummer that is going to the UK Drum Show, or even just kind of watching this, that has heard all the names you've played with, all the stadiums, venues all around the world where you've been, and they would just think, I would love to have a career like Steve's. What would you say?
It might seem to someone quite overwhelming to look at what you've just mentioned about my career, which I've been so lucky to have done. I would say that if you're an aspiring drummer and you want to move forward, that just play with as many people as you can. I think it's a great thing in this day and age where we can play from home, we can record from home. We don't necessarily have to meet other people, but I do think it's important to remember that being in a room with other humans and learning and responding to how they play or how they
Mm,
sing can be, well, has been for me a real source of nutrition, musically, you know what I mean,
I love that.
speaking. And it's really, you know, I probably sound like I keep kind of pointing away from me as a drummer and what I've done or what I've achieved, but you know, I would not have been able to have done or played in the way that I have done if I hadn't have been playing with the other people. You know what I mean? And so I would say, yeah, I would say play with as many people as you can. You know what I mean? In any type of opportunity, even if it's say music that you don't particularly enjoy listening to, but because you never know, one, how you might respond to playing with those people, or two, where that might lead you. That someone might
Yes.
see you play in a scenario. So yeah, I know that's not one bit of advice, but
No,
hopefully that makes sense.
versatility and social engagement, two really big things. Completely agree. And just looking at your CV, your evidence that that combination absolutely works. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the UK Drum Show official podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations once again with all your success, and we can't wait to see you in Mike Dolbear's master classroom across the weekend of the 18th and 19th of October at the ACC Liverpool. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Really looking forward to it. Thank you.